What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video, and today reacting to Trevor Sikkema of PFF's latest 2023 mock draft as a part of our Grade the Mock series. Excited to bring this your way. I've done my best to steer clear of any of the picks that he might have made, but if you have seen this, let me know who your favorite team is. Do you like that fit? If not, where would you like to see them go otherwise? Love to hear your opinions, or if you're digesting this for the first time with me, let me know what picks maybe surprised you the most, maybe what scratches your head the most, or what fits you think are the best for each respective team and player even as well. So I'm a big fan of Trevor Sikkema. I really respect him. Someone who's in and around my age and made his way up towards the top of the biz. I have a ton of respect for him. So let's go ahead and break down his latest 2023 mock. So Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper Jr., they did not have a trade for one. Sikkema does. He's got Houston moving up to one. This is the one trade I haven't had happen in my mocks. I've been, Carolina moving up to one, the very first one at the end of the regular season. Then it's been pretty Indianapolis heavy, which is going to be the same thing I do this upcoming weekend with my first 3-round mock draft. Be sure to come back to the channel for those 3 videos this weekend. But here, if you're Houston and Bryce Young's your guy, he's your QB1, I can support this move. It kind of sucks. They're having to give up assets when you could have just lost week 18, but hey, that is the way of life, I guess. And if you think that Bryce Young is your dude, go get him. So I totally support that move. And then I guess a little bit of a foreshadowing to who goes 12 there. But then the Chicago Bears down a spot, take Jalen Carter. I think if they have to hold and stick and pick at one, Jalen Carter would be the guy. So the fact you get an extra asset with it makes it all the sweeter. This could be edge for sure. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, there's going to be a debate about who the best non-quarterback is. Will Anderson, though, maybe a little bit on the lighter side for edge, where Jalen Carter, not only is the production great, the athleticism numbers are going to be off the charts, but has the exact frame you're looking for. So maybe that one little knock when it comes to weight, pushes Carter up and over the edge. But also I think Carter is just the building block Matt Eberflus is looking for in the middle of that defense, specifically on the defensive line. Furthermore, this edge group is pretty deep. So there's going to be guys that most years would be first rounders that kind of seep into the second round. And then that goes from second round guys that kind of fall into the third. And then there's going to be some day 3 talent that normally would go in day 2. So I think the Bears could take 1 to 2 swings of the bat at edge. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility they take someone on day 2 and day 3. And because of how good this edge group is, they're going to get some pretty good talent based off of where they took those guys versus in, like the 2021 edge class was not all that great. So, a third rounder then I think is going to be a little different comparison-wise to a third rounder this year. And then meanwhile, the D-tackle class, I think the reason you take Carter over Anderson here is there's a half step to a step down to Brian Brzee, depending on where you stand on him. Another half step to a step down to someone like a Kalijah Kancey or Siaki Ika, who I'm still a big fan of. So I think Jalen Carter, clear-cut, the guy at the top of the class. Will Anderson is that for edge, but I think there's enough depth to where it justifies where you go. Carter here at 2. And then, on that note, Will Anderson goes 3, and then Will Levis actually goes 4. So the trend continues. All these reaction mocks, the top 4 has been the same. It's Carter, Anderson, and then some order of 2 quarterbacks, whether it's Young and Stroud, Stroud and Levis, Stroud and Young in that order, or it's Young and Levis like we have here. So the Cardinals get Will Anderson. That would be a huge addition to that defense. And I'd love to see them move Zaven Collins full-time to edge. I think there could be a home for him there. Maybe they keep an inside linebacker now that Isaiah Simmons is kind of playing that, nickel corner, strong safety hybrid role. So maybe he sticks it inside, but if you were to move Collins to outside, edge rusher, make him an edge, I thought he could do that coming out of Tulsa. Him and Will Anderson become a really interesting pairing. And then the Colts at 4, Will Levis. I had a bunch of Indianapolis fans because, last week, if you missed it, I had Will Levis go 1. I do agree with a lot of people who respond to that. And keep in mind, everyone was super cordial, so this is not me complaining about, people being assholes on the internet or anything like that. But a lot of people said, hey, if they're going to make that move, and a lot of the rationale you use to justify the trade up to 1, upside, the tools and traits that Ballard's looking for, Stroud has all that. I totally get that. So there's, if you think that the Colts would move up to 1 and they're taking a guy not named Will Levis, a guy not named Bryce Young, I think Will Levis and CJ Stroud are going to be pretty close. It just comes down to taste. And in a lot of ways, I can totally see where maybe CJ Stroud is more of a Chris Ballard guy than a Will Levis guy. A little bit more college production certainly makes you feel a little better, mentally about taking a guy number 1 overall after you move up from 4 to 1. But here in this situation, like a lot of people did point out to me, was, hey, well, I don't know if Levis goes 1 if anybody else has that pick. That's fair. That's fair. Because a big reason why I had Levis go 1 was the fact it was the Colts. It kind of feels like a Ballard pick. So if Levis is their guy, you could probably wait till 4. If that, or you play the board to where you're moving up to 2, or you're swapping places with Arizona just to make sure Carolina can't get in and sneak one off of them. Yeah, so Levis is their guy. Position yourself in the draft board as necessary, 2, 3, maybe even just sticking here at 4. In this instance, they get their guy at 4. Seattle takes Tyree Wilson. Yeah, I like this fit a good bit. So it's interesting. CJ Stroud does fall to the top 5. I am convinced that's not going to happen, but that's solely my opinion. But Tyree Wilson, kind of this big body edge that Seattle doesn't have. Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, both on the lighter side. So get some size, get some inside-out versatility, especially under Clint Hurd. They switched to that 3-4 defense in Seattle. So I think he could be a stand-up edge rusher, or in a situation second half you're playing with a lead, you could kick him inside to play DN and have Uchenna Nwosu and Boye Mafe out on the field pretty heavily. And then when you go 4-man front, like a nickel or a dime, I do think Wilson may be able to kick inside and play that interior rusher with Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu there on the edge. So like this fit a ton, gives Seattle a lot of flexibility across the defensive line. So I'd be here for it at 5. Plus Richard Senior guys played a lot of football, feels like he can make an impact right away. Detroit Lions, Devon Witherspoon. I'm starting to come around with the idea that there's going to be a corner that goes in the top 10. I initially said, there's no way there's going to be a corner, let alone 2 that go in the top 4, like we saw last year with Derek Stingley Jr. going 3 to Houston, and then Sauce goes 4 to the Jets. But 2 years ago, you get J.C. Horn, Pat Surtain going 9 and 10 respectively, and I think that's a potential outcome here. At 6, again, as much as I do like the corners, there's a lot of corners that are my type, these 6'1", 6'2", long arm, athletic corners that, the NFL is moving towards, and I'm obviously a big fan of. Yeah, 6 still feels a little rich for my blood. Now, if, Detroit orchestrated a trade, moving and trading places with Carolina, let's say Carolina won to leapfrog Atlanta in Las Vegas to get CJ Stroud as the board is played out here. Then at 9, Detroit taking Witherspoon, I can get behind. But if they feel like that's their guy at 6, pair him up with Jeff Okudah. You feel like you have that boundary corner duo of the future. I know Okudah's disappointed a lot of Lions fans, but I think moving him to CB2 and also just remembering he missed an entire season essentially. So he's going into year 4, but this is really just going to be playing year 3. I think he's in for a big step forward this year as is, let alone getting us some help there on the perimeter. I think that makes him that much better of a football player. So then we move on to the Raiders here at 7, Peter Skoronski. I think this is now 3 straight grade the mocks where we've had this same pick, so no real surprise here. And I can get behind it. I think it's an upgrade there at left guard over Alex Bars, or I guess Dylan Parham was playing a lot of left guard, but I think he could also play center if you're looking for an upgrade over Andre James. So whoever Skoronski kicks out of that, starting 5, I do think is an upgrade. It's interesting they have Jermaine Illuminor. Actually, the video right after this is going to be my Raiders, fix the franchise, so be sure to come back tomorrow to see that. But Jermaine Illuminor is a free agent. He actually played really well down the stretch, so I'd be interested to see if they get him on a reasonable deal, I don't know, 3 years, $25 million. I mean, a tackle for $8 million a year would be insane. I mean, think Donovan Smith is about as average a tackle as it gets, in my opinion, and he makes 15. So if you get Jermaine Illuminor for anything short of that $15 million mark, I think it's worth entertaining, especially if it's a 2 to 3 year deal, because he is 28. So getting close to the wrong side of 30 could be an interesting situation. Let's say they don't sign him. Peter Skoronski, I do feel comfortable. Despite the arm length concerns, I think he could be a plug-and-play right tackle or a certain upgrade there on the interior, specifically at left guard. Falcons go Brian Branch. Spoiler, I'm going to do the same thing this weekend. So Falcons fans, let me know where you stand on this one. I know you need edge, but again, deep edge group. I think you could do the same thing you did last year and get a guy at the top of the second round. They did that with Ebiketie last season. I think they do the same thing this draft season. And get a difference maker like a Brian Branch, who not only can play nickel, but he can play strong, he can play free. And especially pairing him up with Richie Grant long term, I'd be fascinated by that. Grant wasn't the most athletically gifted safety, but he was so instinctual and he made so many plays at the Senior Bowl. I was convinced that, that guy can be a free safety. He can play the true deep free safety, ball hawk type of role in a cover 3 heavy defense. Now, things have changed in Atlanta. Dean Pease is there now versus when Rich Grant was initially drafted. Or really, I didn't know what the Dean Pease defense was going to look like transferring from Tennessee to Atlanta, I should say. But, Brian Branch is the box safety. I think that's an upgrade. As a nickel corner, that's an upgrade. Maybe he's their long-term free safety of the future. I think that's in the cards for his skill set as well. So it's just getting another difference maker there in the secondary. He sees the game at a faster pace than anybody else at the college level, it felt like this past year. Only 4 missed tackles, so he's an impact player against the run, but also, again, a very good athlete and very good in coverage. So you're getting a guy who makes an impact in all aspects of that Falcons defense. Panthers take CJ Stroud. Kind of figured this would be the next pick. So now it's interesting to see where Anthony Richardson goes. I've been having 4 quarterbacks go in the top 9. So where does Richardson fall here? I'm fascinated. But Stroud, if he fell into the Panthers' lap here, didn't have to move up, that would be a huge win. That would be an absolute win. Get your future franchise guy. Don't have to spare any extra assets. And, pair him up with Frank Reich. I think that would be an awesome pairing moving forward. So that's an A-plus pick for me. Then we get to number 10. The Eagles take Christian Gonzalez. One that I'm really fond of. He looks like a man press corner. I think this class has a ton of those guys. Like Witherspoon is a man press corner. Joey Porter Jr. probably best suited for something similar. But Gonzalez' fluid moving ability and his seamless ability to flip his hips. This guy just moves at a pace that other man press corners maybe a little bit more rigid. So I do think there is the capability of him playing in a zone heavy defense like Jonathan Gannon's, quarters heavy zone defense. So if you're Philadelphia and Gannon has said he's going to be back, adding an athlete like Christian Gonzalez who can just break on the ball, but also deep, long speed. He's not going to be beat over the top. He's 6'2", can get his arms in there. This is a really interesting addition. And, ideally, you'd bring back James Bradbury because he's played really well. But that being said, you're probably having contract extension talks with Jalen Hurts now, right? So got to figure out long-term where money can be saved. You draft Gonzalez here. Don't re-sign Bradbury. That's one way you can save some cost. Then we get to the Titans. Broderick Jones. Wow. Okay, so over Paris Johnson Jr., I find that to be a little interesting. Broderick Jones does feel like a Titans type of MO. I've been saying for a while, Peter Skoronski feels like a Vrabel guy because Skoronski doesn't have that ideal arm length, and it's like, whatever, but he gets the job done. That feels like Vrabel to me, where it's like, why was this team the number 1 seed 2 years ago? They're so injury riddled. They set an NFL record for players on the roster in a year, and they still got that 1 seed. Just Vrabel. He works his magic, and he doesn't care. He just gets the job done. It felt like, Skoronski was the same type. That being said, this is a team that wants to impose its will in the ground game, and Broderick Jones, probably the most play strength of anybody in this class. I'm a big Paris Johnson Jr. guy. That's why I was a little shocked there. He's my OT1, but man, Broderick Jones with that strength profile and his size kind of feels like a Tennessee Titan. So I could totally see this being the move that allows you to move on from Taylor Lewan, or because Broderick Jones, my concern with him being that he looks a little raw in pass protection. That's why he slid down to my OT4. I even got Anton Harrison up and ahead of him. I think Todd McShay actually does as well too. So it's cool to see him not just out on an island by myself there. But I just think he's a little raw as a pass protector. Maybe you can get him some time at guard, right? Like Nate Davis is a free agent this offseason, so maybe you can find a spot with him at left guard or a Nate Davis replacement there on the interior. I'd be interested to see. He might be a little too big to play guard, so maybe it's just a Taylor Lewan replacement. But I can get behind that, but I'd go Paris Johnson Jr. there. Quentin Johnston, the Texans. So we give Houston their franchise quarterback. We get them their potential wide receiver one of the future. I've done this plenty of times. A lot of the times it's been Levis and Johnson this past weekend. It was Young and Johnston, so I'm here for it, no matter how you spin it. Levis may have more arm strength, but don't be fooled. Bryce Young may be 5'10 and 190 pounds or whatever he ends up officially weighing in at and checking in at height-wise. That dude's got a strong arm for someone that size. Like, he definitely falls more into the Kyler camp. This guy who, maybe small, but he's got a howitzer. Like, don't sleep on it. Versus, like Brock Purdy, who was 6'8" and had a pretty soft arm, in my opinion. But would love to see this addition. Might be some skill overlap, I guess, with Nico Collins, but Collins is strictly kind of poor man's Gabe Davis. Work that vertical stuff. Johnston can do that. I think he has better body control up in the air. I think he'll run a little faster as well. And also, he's just a great satellite player, which I don't think Nico Collins brings you. So a guy you can get the ball out to quick, let him do some work in the open field with the ball in his hands. I think it's a huge addition for a rookie quarterback. So totally here for that pick. Paris Johnson goes to the Jets. And I mean, this almost makes more sense versatility-wise because, Paris Johnson Jr. is first year at Ohio State. Speaking of how good this guy was, they just, kind of pigeonholed him in at guard because they were like, we need our 5 best out there, and Paris Johnson Jr. is one of those 5. So he starts out at guard, then this year kicks out to play left tackle. So for the Jets, it's like, this guy's played guard and tackle, gives you some flexibility depending on what happens with Mekhi Becton. But if we're being honest, if we're playing the board in a true, realistic sense, I got Paris Johnson Jr. ahead of Broderick Jones, so I think Paris Johnson Jr. would be the pick at 11, and then the Jets would be kind of like, we could go Broderick Jones, might be a little bit of a work in progress. Doesn't have that guard flexibility, at least not that we've seen. So could be a little more frustrating there for the Jets. So I understand why Sikkema switched those two. Sometimes there's art to doing these mock drafts. Patriots take Jordan Addison. Feels like the wide receiver they kind of need right now. This wide receiver class is tough because I've been having Quentin Johnston go in that 12 spot right there to Houston this upcoming weekend. You might go higher, you might go lower. You'll have to wait and see. But then the rest of the class, I'm not entirely sure we get a guy in the top 12. Like, I've been having Johnston go there, but I could see a world where the first receivers off the board, it maybe is 14 New England, but I could see where it's back half the teens into the 20s. So I don't know. This wide receiver class is kind of hard to gauge. It's not the same what we've seen over the last 3 seasons, but the Patriots did take Addison here, get a crisp route runner to the mix. Not going to do much yards after the catch. I would like to see them add some dynamism. Someone who could be a satellite player, make the life of Mac Jones a little easier, but someone who could be that wide receiver one. Addison's had his drop issues, but the harder skills getting open. I think we can clean up those drops. He gets open at a high clip. To me, one of, if not one of the top 3, either the best route runner in this class or one of the top 3. So, yeah, would love this addition here for the Patriots. I'd love it even more if they were able to keep Jacoby Myers around, because then you got big body possession, big slot, and then Jordan Addison who can do, the stuff on the outside, work a, extensive route tree, be that number 1 guy. And then Devontae Parker comes in as those contested catch spots there on the outside. Packers take Myles Murphy. So Murphy falls a good bit. If he fell here to 15, I think this would be the selection. Also, no Lucas Van Ness. He feels like a Packers player. Nolan Smith is someone who I totally think Green Bay is looking at. Nolan Smith in specific feels like a guy who is going to go earlier than a lot of fans, maybe who follow mock drafts pretty heavily, will want him or think that he will, just because high-end athlete and a team captain of Georgia, like those things that are hard to quantify, and you may not always see, especially when a guy is hurt. Those things matter a lot to NFL teams. But Myles Murphy, man, I mean, this would be awesome for the Packers. Inside-out versatility. He could be a Dean Lowry replacement in passing situations. He could, kind of grow into this stand-up outside edge rushing spot. He's good against the run already. 6'5", 275. You look at the work they did with Sean Gary, who was this very moldable ball of clay. Myles Murphy is the exact same thing. So, dude, if this was the pick, A+ for me. I know the Packers have some other question marks. Are they moving on from Rodgers? Whatever. But if they get Myles Murphy here at 15, that's a slam dunk to me. Especially if there is a world, maybe the Jets get Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about them at 13 and 15. Could you go Michael Mayer and then Myles Murphy? Man, that feels like it rounds out two of the things I would love to see them add in this first round. Anyways, Washington Commanders take Anthony Richardson. So here's where the fall ends. Yeah, they said, and I think it was Jonathan Banks was the reporter's name, so apologies if that's wrong, but he announced that, Sam Howell's the plan right now for Washington moving forward. That, to me, especially someone who, covers the Washington area, that sounds like, to me, information slipped out so that teams don't think Washington's in the quarterback market. I absolutely think they're looking to make a move. If they can get Rodgers, especially if there's a new owner coming into town, they will sell the farm for Rodgers, in my opinion. But then also, even further up this board, Jimmy Garoppolo could be in play. Derek Carr could be a contender. So I just think they want teams thinking that, oh yeah, we're going in with Sam Howell, and don't worry about us. Don't look at us. We're not doing anything. So I do think they're in the quarterback market. So Anthony Richardson, if he falls to their lap to 16, I could totally see it. This could give you the opportunity to see what Sam Howell's all about. Richardson, I don't know. He's so tough. Is he ready to run an offense day one? Probably not. But given the fact Dan Mullen didn't play him 2 years ago, and we're coming off his first year as a starter at Florida, and you see those inconsistencies. Sometimes the throwing motion isn't always the same, and just feels like he's raw when it comes to actually just seeing the field, being a starting quarterback, being the guy at the helm of an offense. I kind of want to see him out in the field. I kind of want to see him just get out there and take his lumps and get better. But I'm not sure an NFL team's going to be willing to do that, at least not for the first half of his rookie year or thereabouts. So this could give you a nice little hybrid approach here. Let's see what Howell's all about, but we also got Anthony Richardson waiting in the wings. Pittsburgh takes Darnell Wright. It's about as high as I've seen Darnell Wright come off the board. Left tackle that flipped over to play the right side for Tennessee, or at Tennessee. So my problem with this for Pittsburgh would be, and this is coming from a Steelers fan, so maybe I'm getting a little too nuanced here. Tackle's a tackle. I've been going tackle plenty of my own mocks, but this is a right tackle. And Chukwuma Okorafor, if you've been around this channel for any length of time, this hurts for me to say. This tastes like vinegar coming in my mouth, but he's been the better tackle of him and Dan Moore, which is not a high bar to pass. I mean, both those guys have really not been great. So I'd rather see them land a Broderick Jones, even if it means Broderick Jones, who I'm a little lower on. I'd take Anton Harrison here at 17 over Darnell Wright. Paris Johnson Jr. would be the ideal situation. He falls into Pittsburgh's lap at 17. But if it's Jones, Harrison, either one of those guys, I think I would take over Wright. Play them at left tackle, let them develop, grow, be the ideal future guy there at that position. And then you can kick Dan Moore over to right tackle. Maybe have a training camp battle between Moore and Chukwuma Okorafor. So that's my ideal situation here. I guess it would be the opposite. Maybe you look at Chugs at left tackle. But don't hate the pick because it is a position in need. But is also Darnell Wright. Is he the 17th best player in this class? So, if you're not going to get the tackle, like I'd take Anton Harrison because I have him ranked higher than Darnell Wright, but also like it kind of feels like we're reaching for a tackle now instead of taking best player available, which would be my preference as well. The Lions take Elijah Cansey. I could absolutely see this. Let me refresh my memory. Devon Witherspoon, I remember now. Man, a draft where the Lions get Witherspoon and Cansey, I mean, I think that'd make a lot of Detroit fans happy. You can play Cansey at that 3 tech. A lot of the same stuff I've been saying about Brian Brzee for the Lions, where it's like, yeah, you can play him at that 3 tech. Lee McNeil plays that nose. Elijah Cansey gives you the same stuff. And then you also nab that, number 1 potential corner of the future. And Devon Witherspoon, who fits perfect with what Aaron Glenn wants to do. A lot of press man in his defense. I'm here for it. So I think this would be an awesome draft here for the Lions. Be interested to see if we got a round 2 here from Sikkema. How would he follow it up? Because ton of picks there on day 2 for Detroit. I'd love to know, like, what are those other areas that he's looking to target. Tampa Bay, he gives the most Sirens Torrence. I could see this. Ryan Jensen, I would assume is going to come back. He came out of retirement for Brady, so maybe not. We also have Robert Hainsey in the mix, so if Jensen does step away, Hainsey then becomes that center of the future. That does open up a guard spot. Shaq Mason, I do anticipate being back, so depending on what Jensen does, there could be an opening there on the interior offensive line. So therefore, wouldn't hate this whatsoever. Keep him in state, which is always nice, and this is one of those players where kind of like a Nolan Smith, where like you may look at it and be like, really? I don't want my team to take that. I don't want my team to draft the edge rusher who got hurt from Georgia. I don't want my team to draft a guard. Well, you know what? These guys are pretty damn good at their position. They're going to be respected. I think they're going to crush the interview process, both of them. So they're going to be pretty high up on a lot of teams' boards. Seattle, Joey Porter Jr. I know a lot of Seahawks fans like to tell me that they're not going to take a corner round 1. It's not a John Snyder, not a Pete Carroll thing. I would say this is a draft class unlike any other at the corner position. And this is not me saying this is the greatest corner class ever. No, it's more so me saying this corner class is uniquely gifted with somewhere between 8 to 12 guys who were 6 foot and taller, 190 to 200 pounds, could play that press man, all good athletes. I mean, just in the first round, we're talking about Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., Keely Ringo. That's just the 4 that immediately come to mind. And then guys who are fringe first to second rounders, Deontay Banks, right? TYREE Stevenson, just to name a couple more. Man, this is a loaded class when it comes to these tall, long-armed athletic corners. So I think this is the class where if it's going to change, it's now. Now, granted, if we get through this draft cycle and Seattle doesn't take one in the first round, then I'm with you. If they don't do it in this class, then they definitely are not going to ever do it again. So I like the fit of Joey Porter Jr. in that Seattle defense. Again, a lot of people are saying he fits better as a man press a corner. I think he comes with some scheme versatility. That is solely my opinion, so take it for however you want. But I do think he's a good enough athlete to be able to play in some zone. We'll see once we get past Indy. So I'd love to see this addition for Seattle. Pair him up with Tariq Woolen. Kobe Bryant moves into the nickel. That secondary all of a sudden looks really scary because they already got 3 good safeties too. So yeah, Dolphins forfeit the pick. Chargers take Zay Flowers. This is a pick I think I've done in my last 2 mocks. Yes, it is a huge thumbs up. And let me actually talk about this because I haven't gotten to talk about it. But if you've been around the channel for any length of time, I'm a big Kellen Moore guy. And trust me, like I understand there's been a lot of inconsistencies during his time in Dallas. And I looked at that Week 18 game against Washington. How does CeeDee Lamb go 20 minutes of that game without a target? Part of that's Dak, part of it's Kellen Moore. Dak and Kellen Moore looked like trash. They both had a horrible day at the office there Week 18. And, the postseason, against a really good 49ers defense, but albeit, a rough day in the office there as well. I think this is going to be a great spot for Kellen Moore to showcase, I'm going to get away from the drama and all the limelight that comes with being at Dallas, and I'm going to go get a quarterback upgrade, and I'm going to go do my own thing in LA, which sounds awesome. So I think Kellen Moore, if I could have picked an offensive coordinator that is not a former head coach, to be a replacement for Joe Lombardi, he's top of the list, especially if you can tell me I can take a coordinator from another team. Kellen Moore is towards the top of my list. So I love that they got this opportunity. Love that addition. And then moving on from Joe Lombardi, who was, I think, a little too conservative, not pushing the ball down the field, not using Herbert's arm to flip the field. Now you got Kellen Moore, who I think will take those shots, do a lot of different things, utilize motion, utilize play action even more. And then you add a speed receiver like Zay Flowers. God, the only thing that I hope then is that they can restructure or make something work with Keenan Allen, because I don't want to see Zay Flowers be a Keenan Allen replacement. I want to see him be a Keenan Allen, I don't want to say stimulant, but lack of a better term, an offensive stimulant and somebody who can play off of Keenan Allen. Because then you have 6'3", 6'4" Mike Williams. He wins it in the air. He's that contested catch guy. Makes the hard stuff look easy. Keenan Allen, not that great of an athlete, but man, an absolute archetype when it comes to being a route runner, working the underneath and intermediate. And then Zay Flowers, who great satellite player, great deep route runner, and has that speed they're missing right now. God, that's what I want to see. So hopefully this isn't Zay Flowers replacing Keenan Allen. Instead, it's, Zay Flowers in addition to Keenan Allen. Now, granted, if they do move on from Keenan Allen, I think then Zay Flowers becomes the slot, and you're talking about Josh Palmer, who did serve in a more than satisfactory way last year. So if it's Palmer and Williams on the outside, so be it. And then Zay Flowers, DeAndre Carter kind of doing different things there in the slot. I can get behind that. But man, I hope they can find a way to make this pick happen and then also keep Keenan Allen around. Anyways, long diatribe. Let's talk about the Ravens here at 23. Deonte Banks, another name to know. 6'2", 200 pounds. I just think Maryland didn't ask him to do enough in press coverage. I think he has a skill set and a body specifically uniquely built for that type of role. He was always at the catch point, but again, I think if you change up his role, let him go get a wide receiver at the catch point, or at the line of scrimmage, you'll see that catch point production flip in his favor. So I feel like a guy who, once he gets to the NFL and his role changes a little bit, becomes that much better of a player. So you may look at Deonte Banks and be like, who's that? I've never heard of him from Maryland. Where do his interception numbers look like? Yeah, it may not be anything crazy there if you don't know who he is to kind of sway you, but this is a guy with a role change, proper coaching, the right scheme, like Baltimore, who have done a great job developing corners. This guy can become a force. The Vikings take Siaki Ika. I'm a big Siaki Ika fan. Yeah, he's the 358-pound D tackle that, kind of his best moves on tape are all like finesse pass rush, which is the exact last thing you would anticipate for someone that size. But I do think part of it's Baylor. Like, what great defensive tackle from Baylor have we talked about in the last decade? I'll wait. So I think once he gets the NFL level, and again, same thing we talked about with Banks, different mindset, coaching staff working with him to become better at different things, I think he'll hold the line of scrimmage a lot better. This year, he did take a step back as a run defender. Really, at Baylor, he never really was an awesome run defender, but again, I think that's just kind of the way Baylor's coached up those guys. I think he'll be able to hold the line. He has the mass to do it, and he has the strength to do it too. And I think once you add a little bit of a bull rush move into what he can already do as a finesse rusher, which again, weird to say, the guy has a good spin, he has a good swim move, add a bull rush into the mix, and then hold the line of scrimmage. This guy is going to become a defensive tackle starter for the next 8 to 10 years, in my opinion. So big on Ika. Jags take Michael Mayer here at 25. I had this in my last mock. There are other picks I like more, but Michael Mayer, just like Bijan Robinson, it's like, where do you take this guy? Like this guy who's really good at his position, but plays a position that isn't highly coveted, right? Like, doesn't have a whole lot of value. Where do you put him? And here, I think it's just easy to say, hey, well, Michael Mayer could be like Zach Ertz for Doug Peterson just in Jacksonville. And also, I know Evan Ingram's had a career year, but that's the point. He's had a career year and he's still in his 20s, so that dude's going to fetch back. And the Jags are over the cap right now, so it might not be, they may want to bring him back, but depending on the contract demands and what his market looks like, he might be priced out of their budget. So Michael Mayer totally makes sense from that perspective if they lose out on Ingram. Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Giants. Like this, I'd be interested to see what this means for Wan'Dale Robinson, because I'm not entirely sure Jackson Smith and Jigba could play on the outside. If he ran something better than 4.5, 4.6, I could change my mind, because he is a savvy route runner. He does have decent size, good body control, can go win in the air, can be a contested catch guy. Does a lot of those things well. He just does not. He's not fleet of foot. But then Wan'Dale, it's like, yeah, could maybe he move to the outside? Maybe, but not entirely sure. If you're a Giants fan, do you think, how would you, if this were the pick, how do you think that wide receiver room would play? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then you got Isaiah Hodgins, who can kind of feature in and, a variety of roles. Almost kind of feels like a Jackson Smith and Jigba again, not an insane athlete, finds a soft spot, sure hands. I don't know. Feels like some overlap, but here if they did go with this pick, I would understand, because they need wide receiver. And so it's trying to address the need. Also, the value, I think, matches up here, late first, early second. I think that's where I'm going to fall on JSM. Cowboys take Clark Phillips, the third. Yeah, be sure to come back this weekend. A little spoiler, he is not going to be in the first round. I just worry about the arm length, man. 5'10", 183 pounds. He feels like he's going to be this year's Roger McCreary, which is easy to say because it was just a year ago, but McCreary had some awesome tape at Auburn. He got bullied a little bit, a little small, and he got pushed around against bigger guys, but he also had some awesome tape. And we kind of saw that at Tennessee, where sometimes, you get pushed around, and sometimes you're like, man, that arm length doesn't really matter. He just has a knack for making plays. Clark Phillips kind of feels like a lot of the same things. Much better defense there at Utah than what McCreary was playing in at Auburn, so that certainly helps. But yeah, if the arm length is, sub NFL standards, then that, I feel like he's going to, at best, be a day two guy. That's where McCreary fell to. He went from this mid to late first rounder into an early second rounder, which even then kind of felt a little rich for where I thought he was going to end up going. So, interesting fit for the Cowboys. It comes down to, do you think Deron Bland a day 3 pick from last year, couldn't get better. He had some moments where he played well, and he had some moments where he looked bad. So it comes down to finding out what he consistently looks like, next season. So I think that number 2 corner is a need for Dallas, but it comes down to where you stand on Bland. Then the Bills take Bijan Robinson. Yeah, this makes a ton of sense. Again, it's hard to find where Bijan's going to go in these mock drafts. But also, if he fell here to 29, I think it would be pretty great value. I'm not huge about running backs in the first round, but Bijan's not Najee Harris, right? He has that explosiveness for one, and then also where Najee was a good running back or a good pass catcher as a running back, Bijan, better route runner, softer hands. You can line him up in the slot. You can play him out wide. Texas did that most of the time just to catch a screen, but this dude comes with way more receiving versatility than Najee Harris did. So I don't think the argument is really the same there, but also more explosiveness. This guy's going to break off a 40-yard run where Najee, you're kind of capped at 20, so. Again, a different argument here. If you fell to 29, that'd be pretty good value there for the Bills. Also, I think it needs to come from a role change for Khalil Shakir and Dawson Knox, have them do more stuff intermediate and underneath. But Bijan, I think, can take 30 to 40% of his snaps in the slot and give you a guy who just get the ball on a little drag route. Just give him a head start and let a DB try to tackle him. Linebackers have a hard time tackling Bijan Robinson. How do you think corners fare? So I think he can work the underneath stuff. He's a good enough route runner to do some stuff in the intermediate parts of the field too. I think this fit would make a ton of sense for the Bills. I just don't know if he lasts till 29. Or 28. 29 to the Bengals. Darnell Washington's one I've done a ton. The offensive line did not look good. So I'm going to do something a little different this weekend, but this is the type of move that no matter what they do on the O-line, this solidifies and makes that unit a little bit better. Also, a long-term receiving option. He doesn't have the most extensive route tree, but when you're playing an offense with Boyd, Higgins, and Chase, I don't think you need to. Block and release, go to the flat. Block and release, run the seam. That sort of stuff. That's all I really need. Stop at the first down marker, run that that little 10-yard curl. That's all I need. Fall forward. You're 6'7", 260. You move well for it. Yeah, there's a specific role for Washington. I think he would really be able to fill it well for the Bengals. Plus that blocking addition to their O-line would be the biggest value you could add. The Broncos, Trenton Simpson. I could see this. Long-term linebacker need here in Denver. This is a fit that I have not come up with and not done in my own videos, but I like it a ton. Linebacker body, safety skill set, can play sideline to sideline, great in coverage, instinctual, good against the run. I still got Simpson as my number 1 off-ball linebacker. Drew Sanders gives you more pass rush upside, I think, but everything else, I think Simpson does a little better. So that's solely my opinion, but it's gonna be it's close between those two. I mean, they're both really, really good. So they're both in that kind of. I think they should go somewhere in the 20 to 40 range. I really like both those guys in that spot. The Kansas City Chiefs, Brian Brzee. This is kind of where the Brzee fall ends. So the last 3 grade the mocks we have. Kuiper having him fall to 30 to the Chiefs. Sikkema does the same thing here at 31, and then, it was Jeremiah who had him go 30 to the Chiefs. Sikkema's got him going 31 to the Chiefs, and that Kuiper didn't have him in the first round at all, which that's crazy. So, comes down to your opinion on him, but I still think he's going somewhere earlier than 30. But man, if you were to put him here with Kansas City, pair him up with Chris Jones, if there's a guy to have Brian Brzee to learn how to be a pass rusher, Chris Jones is it. I mean, did you see him just absolutely embarrass Hakeem Adeniji? That last rep, that sealed the deal for the Chiefs taking out the Bengals? Yeah, let me have that guy work with Brian Brzee. Brzee's a high-end athlete. I do think he needs to add a little bit of strength, a little bit of weight. He's 6'5", 300. Get me to 6'5", 320, and I'll be a happy camper as long as that's all muscle, specifically coming from the lower half. I'd love to see that. I think that makes him a better strength profile, allows him to do that much more against the run, and then learn some pass rush moves from a guy like Chris Jones, and this guy could be very, very scary. And then the Eagles round this out, take Lucas Van Ness. He's going to go somewhere in the first round. I just don't know where. I don't know if it'll be top 10 like Kuiper and Jeremiah had it at, but that being said, those guys were as plugged in as it gets, so I should take a page out of their playbook. I'm thinking mid-teens-ish, into the 20s maybe for Van Ness, but hey, for the Eagles, this would be an awesome addition. Christian Gonzalez, potential starting corner on the outside of the future, and Lucas Van Ness, inside-out versatility, prioritizing pass rusher. That feels like Howie Roseman to a T. But that is going to do it for my reaction to Trevor Sikkema's latest 2023 NFL mock draft. Tell me what you think down below. What would you grade this mock? I'm going to give Sikkema, I like a lot of it. I'll go in 88. I'll go in 88 for Sikkema. I like this draft a fair amount. But let me know what picks maybe were the most surprising to you. Who's your favorite team? Do you like that pick? Do you not? I'd love to hear your thoughts and why you like or hate that selection. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit the like button if you did. Subscribe if you're new. And that is going to do it for today's video. Be sure to come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders in our Fix the Franchise series. Until then, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.